Hey everybody, welcome to Agent Pursuit today. Thank you for tuning in. We have two of our top rookies, or agents who have been top rookies with our brokerage here today. So Jennifer and Aman, thank you for being with us. And we're going to get into a lot of stuff that made them successful in their first year, but just to kind of preface this off and why, Lindsay and I thought this was an important segment is, one, there's a lot of new agents coming into the business, and last year or two, and even if you're not brand new, people who have been really trying to break in to being successful, and they're in year 2 and they're in year 3, and they're looking at people like yourselves and other top rookies saying, I've been trying all of these things and these other people have been doing this for a year and they're doing more business than I am. What do I need to do to start on a successful path to be successful? And in a tough market especially, where sales are down to anybody who is brand new, obviously it's a little bit tough right now. So we just wanted to get some advice and your guys' perspectives on what you did to hit the ground running and to still be happy in your first few years.
Yeah, so welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Jennifer, let's start with you. Sure. Give us your long story about your real estate experience up until now. But what did you do before real estate, and how long have you been in the business now? And how did you get in the business? Why did you get in the business? Things like that. Brief sort of 90-second answer on that.
For sure. So my background is actually customer service. I did have an office administration diploma. And so in 2009, I received that and did quite a lot of office work. In 2010, I actually got a job working as an assistant for a realtor. And so that was kind of an advantage that I had that not every rookie has. I think that a lot of people thought that I had more of an advantage because I had that background, but it doesn't matter if you can do the back end if you don't actually speak to a client. So you still have to sell a house to talk to a client, right? And so then from there, I did a little bit of back and forth admin, and then in 2013, I also worked for another top real estate agent.
Yep.
And the year that I worked for him, we did 128 deals. So it really got me on the ground running and figuring out what I needed to do to be a top successful realtor. That definitely helped, and some of the things not to do as well. I also decided one day that I was like, this is what my passion is, this is what my purpose is. I really enjoy helping people, and I was like, what can I do to make my passion my paycheck? And I was one of those people that watched HGTV, and I was like, I can do this. And it's very different than what that is, but that's sort of how I became, and decided and made the decision and did the jump. I've been a realtor now for 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years in October. And yeah, it's been great so far, and there's been hard days and easy days and everything in between. So, and I've loved every single minute of it. I feel bad calling it a job, but it's everything that I wanted it to be and more. So
that's great. Same question.
So I started in project management. I'm actually originally from BC, born and raised in Surrey. Project management in construction actually. So eventually I got an opportunity here in Alberta, in Calgary. And then I moved over in 2014. So I had that job for about 2 years before layoffs got hit, like the company. Around that time, I saw it kind of coming with the market being the way it was, the production slowing down on the construction side at the company. So I thought, you know what, I know the product, and I don't want to work in this position anymore where I'm kind of behind this desk at all times,
right?
And where all the complaints and problems come to me, and I have to kind of organize and fix everything, right? You could be under budget, and they'll be like, well, that's money we could have put somewhere else. So even under budget wasn't good. It had to be always on budget. So it wasn't a very thankful job, really. So around that time, I started working on getting my license and everything because I wanted to stay close to the construction industry. So houses made sense. And when I got my license, basically I started in 2016, November.
Cool.
And I've been doing it since. And I started full-time from the get-go because I got laid off the other place. So no other options. Went in head first. Like Jennifer was saying before we even started this, failure was not an option. You had to go in, and I put all my time and effort into it.
Perfect.
I love how sweet you are. I could see, when you said I could see that the market was crashing, projects were starting to not come out. So I figured I should get into real estate.
The market was awful, and here we go. I was like, yes, I'm going to go sell homes in this market. That's perfect.
But obviously the failure is not an option thing is really great. You see some agents who come in as kind of a second career, and they have a bit of a nest egg, or they have a spouse that's working, there's some stable income, and the whole need to go hard might not be as significant as it was for both of you. So obviously that was a bit of a driving factor. So on the hit the ground running part, let's kind of transition to that. So Jennifer, you got your license. Obviously you had a little bit of a background knowing what to do. But in terms of your own business, because whatever you would have done with that realtor, those weren't your people, those weren't your clients. What did you do to say, I need to do a deal in the next, 3 months? What steps did you take?
So I did a couple of different things. I mean, I just took all of the courses that I possibly could. That was a big part of it. So I never...
Probably the secret to your success.
It is, yes,
No,
yes. CIR is the secret to my success. All the education.
Just kidding.
So I actually joined a team right at the very beginning. And so the first deal that I did actually came from that team. And then the next deal, the first 4 or 5 deals that I did was actually from the team. And getting those leads given to me actually helped a little bit. They were pretty cold leads, but I was able to turn them into something because I did know what to do on the back end. So talking to people and figuring that part out of it was kind of secondary to me. And so once I got in front of them, I was able to use my charm and charisma to convince them that I was the agent for them. And I never told them that I had been a realtor for an hour. I was like, oh yeah, I'm long in the tooth. And
still in my first year, but things
it's
are going
whatever.
awesome.
It's going awesome. And so then I just kind of did it from there and continued doing that. And probably my biggest success, and I have done a segment with CIR Live before on open houses. And so that's probably where my bread and butter came from. I did 5 deals from open houses in my first year.
And that had nothing to do with the team.
No, that was separate.
You generating your own business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
open houses was huge.
Yeah, open houses was my definite money maker for sure that first year.
Great. Aman, same question.
So for my first year, basically because I knew I was going to get the license, I just started letting people know. It's like, I'm going to be licensed by November.
Perfect.
Let me know if you know anyone. And then basically, when I went in to interview at the Northeast office, because I was checking out different brokerages,
Yeah.
I met David, and then we talked, we did the interview, and he was letting me know one of the most important things you can do when you start off is to make that list of everyone you know. And he actually gave me a copy of the list that we have online in our virtual office, which is go to your Facebook friends.
Yeah, 150
Yeah.
ways to meet people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started working on that, and the tough thing is almost everyone I knew was in BC. So,
Oh, wow.
because I had moved here in 2014, and I started in 2016, so I'd only been in the city for 2 years. So after I looked at all the brokerages, I came back to David. I'm like, yeah, this is where I want to be. And here's the thing, though. Someone called me, said that they want to talk to me. They might have a property. What do I do?
Yeah. It's nice to have that problem before you're even in the business. It's
I got lucky with that one, yeah. And it was basically someone that worked as a trade at one of the companies I worked at. He recommended me to another builder that was having issues with his realtor. And so I asked Dave, it's like, what do I do? He's like, okay. And we prepped through everything, got everything ready. I went there, interviewed, and that was basically my first listing.
Perfect.
That's incredible. So obviously, as part of the getting in touch with people that you knew, even though there was a limited number of people in Calgary, all of them knew that you were getting into real estate. So that was a really important part of what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you did it because you did a lot more than one transaction. Hence, you're sitting here.
Yeah.
So where'd the rest come from?
Basically, after that first one, that builder just basically started saying great things about me to other builders he knew.
Perfect.
And then in that first year, I ended up working with 4 different builders. That was helpful from that first one. Managing it all and interviewing with these guys, honestly, the courses that I took really helped me organize everything.
Yeah.
Be ready, practice, and everything. Because these guys would call me out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I'm here. Meet me at this time. And I'm gonna be like, okay, that's in tomorrow, and he wants to meet at a construction site.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, good thing I have everything printed and ready, like I was told to.
Nice.
Grab it, go.
Nice.
So that, and then open houses really helped a lot too. I think I got 4 deals through open houses.
Wow.
And yeah, none of them I was expecting. It was just people that I was keeping in touch with, sending them information, and then out of the blue they'd call me and say oh, so we're ready. I'm like, okay, let's go.
Perfect.
which was fun.
Because you both touched on open houses, let's just talk about that for a minute, because there's a lot of people in their first year who don't have a huge database and they don't have repeat and referral clients to start calling. And open houses, I mean, we tell people to do it all the time, and for everybody watching, we have an open house distribution list where agents who do have listings that they don't want to set open houses for, they post, and there's a surplus all of the time of people looking. So I guess question number one is that how you found some of the open house opportunities, or did you know other people? How did you get into those listings? Because obviously they weren't yours.
Yeah, right. So the way that I did it was that I decided that I was only going to have 6 signs, and I was only going to do open houses that it took less than 6 signs to get to. And so I would actually pick communities that I knew. So I would be like, okay, I'm seeing that there's tons of houses selling in Evergreen, or I'm seeing that there's tons of houses selling between probably 350 and 450. So I would actually, maybe the realtor didn't even realize that they wanted to have an open house. If there wasn't something on the open house opportunities, I would go and look in MLS and just be like, okay, here's a house in Evergreen that's been on the market for less than 10 days. It's $425,000 in Evergreen, and it takes 4 signs to get there. And I'd call the realtor and I would say,
Nice.
I want to sit it. And they would be like, oh, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, sure, that would be
That's
great.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Create your own opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I still do that. And even like now, I've got my own listings, but sometimes I still, like I actually just did a thing yesterday, literally just yesterday, that I said, I need you to sit mine. Can I sit yours? Because I have like my own personal house for sale, and I can't sit that as an open house. So I'm like, you're a great agent. Can you come and sit mine, and I'll sit yours? So that there's somebody at your house and somebody at mine.
That's fantastic.
And Aman, tell me about what worked for you at open houses to capture the people's information. You stayed in touch, but I feel like that step of getting people to give you their contact information is a problem for a lot of agents.
Yeah, so that was a problem for me as well. Luckily, there's a lot of other realtors that I talked to, and they all recommended the same thing, which is like have something to give them that they want,
Right.
which is always information basically. So if I was doing an open house somewhere where I'm like, okay, this is like a first-time home buyer thing, I'd make sure I had like copies of an article or something for first-time home buyers.
Perfect.
I'd let them know like, okay, so I have 1 copy. I can email you one if you want. And then same if I would go to
so you didn't hand it to them. Oh, that's really clever. So you'd have one so they could kind of see it and know it's legit, and you're not just saying something, but be like, oh, look how good this looks.
Yeah.
But you can't have it.
Yeah,
I
and
feel like this was something that
That's
Lindsay
good.
said in one of his
Yeah.
videos.
probably.
Yeah, because you're right. If you just hand it, if you print out 20 copies and someone just takes it away and then nothing.
Yeah.
So that's really clever.
So I always like to go and angle that I'm a very green realtor. I'm electronic only.
Yeah.
So you're not going to see much paperwork with me. And they'll just email you whatever you need. That usually works. So having that information, if it's a place that looks like I've done open houses in houses that look like, they need to get a lot of work done to them, so builder specials. And I'd have information about renovations and stuff like that, like different websites you can go to and stuff like that. And then when they'd come through, I'm like, well, I can send you some information. If you're getting a place like this, you're probably going to want to get some work done. It was also a good time to bring up the Best My Nest stuff as well, because it needed work done. And then here's a list of people you could work with.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's
This
great.
is totally unscripted because we didn't prep you guys or be like, hey, talk about the incredible tools here and stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. I'll pay you later. Jennifer, how about yourself? What worked for capturing people besides, dashing good looks and
Right,
things like that?
My
But-
charisma alone.
Yeah, that's right. But
We can't teach charisma.
Yeah.
But so actually, as I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking about that, and I was like, they're going to ask me questions that they're not going to like the answer to. And
Okay.
one of them is that I actually didn't. All of the deals that I did was strictly from them contacting me.
So you hand out your business card.
Hand out my business
Get
card,
in touch with
give
me.
them all the information,
Perfect.
and say, if you have any questions, please contact me. I have the information. I know the bus route. I know the houses. I know the market. I know the CMAs. I know the value of this community. And if you want more information, you contact me.
So you demonstrate your value up front.
It wasn't just
like, oh, if you guys have a question about the house, call me. It's like,
Yeah.
listen, I got all this stuff.
I know, and
Reach out to me.
I did try to work in the communities that I lived in. Like at that time, I was living in Shaughnessy, and so I was like, I live here, I work here, I live here. I know what I'm doing, and so then they would, and all of them, all 5 of the ones that I did do, were all, hi, we met you at the open house. can we work with you?
That must have been I have little goosebumps. That must be such a great call to get.
Yes, yeah, because I mean, I'm not the kind of person that wants to spend a ton of time chasing people. And I do that in my real life as well. Like, if you want to work with me, I'm here, I've got the information, but this is, because realistically, most people are going to write their name down, but they're just doing it out of obligation. And so the real serious people, those are the ones I want to work with, and I'm not going to chase them, so. And I still do that today. I still don't have any sort of written down paperwork or anything. I mean, obviously the contests and that, but most of the time they cross off that they don't want you to contact them anyway, so it's really, they're just entering the contest and that's the end of it.
Totally.
But, yeah.
Right. So, but and again, this is a really specific question, but I do think it's important because I've been in quite a few open houses, and a realtor has a stack of business cards there.
Yeah.
And somebody can take a business card. Were you very active in handing out a business card so that was taken?
Yeah, and I also, whenever I do an open house that isn't my own, of course, I print out the MLS sheet and then I do the banner at the top that has my information, so then I give both. I'm also giving, so like if I had the MLS sheet, I will have my business card and then a pen that also has my information, and I hand that all to them at one time.
Nice.
That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, obviously,
And then they can like cross off or like circle things while they're going through the house.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, we took a bit of a side route to talk about open houses, which wasn't necessarily on here, but to met some of the things that you talk about in your class, one of the reasons why these are so important is because if you don't have your own database yet, you need to have real estate conversations and start building that.
Yeah,
so it makes sense that this would be a really important thing that people should be doing if you need to drum up business. I'm glad we touched on that.
Well, and I'm like, as Aman was saying, I'm actually born and raised in Calgary. I have a humongous database. I actually sold 13 houses before anybody that I knew bought a house from me, because they're like, you have been a realtor for 5 minutes. Like, and I was 29. Like, they were like,
don't trust you.
They don't trust me. So and then they're like, well, if 13 strangers bought a house from you, Jenny Hooper, I will also consider. And so I did. I sold 13 houses before one person that I knew. You think your grandma and your sister and your brother and your best friend are going to buy houses from you, but they don't. And so you do. You can have 150 people on a list, your hairdresser and whatever. Everyone knows 10 realtors, though. And until you start proving yourself, you better not count on the fact that your people that you already know are going to use you. And now most of my business is from referrals. But it took 13 before somebody I knew bought a house.
Well, and I love what Aman was saying, where you had, you asked people for help. You went out and you said, hey, I'm getting my real estate license. Can you help me out? Because lots of people will say, well, I'm not prepared to use you yet, but I'll throw my friend under the bus. And it's just like, it's like, oh, I'll refer them to so-and-so. And it's like, but for yourself, it's like, well, my mortgage broker friend told me that I should be doing this. And it's just like, oh my gosh. But so nice work on being prepared to, reach out and ask for help, because it's very non-threatening.
Yeah. The only thing was, though, like, I got that one deal, luckily, when I started out, but then there was a dry spell for a while.
Right, yeah.
And that's when you do the whole, like, calling everyone, networking, going to events, talking to people, keeping in touch with people. Yeah. And that's basically where the few deals after that came. So it was like that one lucky deal, and then there was like just nothing for a while.
Perfect.
And it was just hitting the streets and talking to people.
Yeah, I got really nervous myself, because I'm like, is this because I don't have that big database? And should I have maybe moved back and started everything where I knew people? Yeah. But I like the city so much. I'm like, I kind of want to stay here, though.
Well, and what a good comparison, because you're just like, well, I had the database, but
had it.
I had to go to new people anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
When you said, and I want to ask you a question just in terms of how you generated some of your business, because it's very easy, like, oh, like you got lucky and builders used you, which isn't the case at all. Because I remember we had a previous conversation. You just mentioned you had to be extremely prepared and still work really hard to get that business.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that you had printed everything off and everything was ready to go, can you just mention, for people watching, a few specifics of what that meant? Like, what did you need to have prepared so that if business came to you and you were that new, that you just looked like a rock star when you showed up?
So I am big into lists.
Okay.
So I make lists of everything. Like, I typically hear like questions. And then I remember, like, okay, so this is most likely what I'm going to be asked, so like I can just review that kind of stuff real quick. It kind of gets you ready for the interview, because like, okay, I'm going to hear this is what they want to talk about. And if they don't ask me one of these questions, then I'll bring it up myself, right? Then it sounds like, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's bringing up a topic that I should have.
Right.
The other thing I always print out is I always have a package for buyers and one for sellers. So depending on who I'm meeting, and it has information, basically a little bit of market information about me, some of the different marketing materials that I have access to, how I'm gonna market everything. If it's a buyer, how I'm gonna search for their home, the different ways I have to reaching out to people to find new properties. And everything's ready to go, and I just kind of go through that with them.
Perfect.
And other than that, the only other thing that I'd say like I really needed to have is just a folder to put it all in, so I can hand it over.
Which is provided by CIR at the office.
Oh, perfect. Exhibit A. Insert overlay here, folder.
Yeah.
Little post-production for you.
Exactly.
Okay, so Jennifer, are you still using the same business generation strategies, or how are things changed today? What are you doing today that's different or the same from when you started?
Yes, so I've recently met with David and we did a whole entire business plan. He took the time to work with me to sort of figure out what I'm going to do now with a bunch of changes in my life. And so open houses are still basically my number one thing. I'm still going to constantly do those. I do 2 a weekend, sometimes just 1. The other thing is my business is probably over 75% referral right now, and that's the way that I want to build my business. And so I've been very lucky that it's pretty rare, I think, to have that much referral business at this point. But I have just impressed the people that have worked with me so much that they're my advocates, and they're out there on the street saying, Jennifer is our girl, you want to use her. And so that's been really good. And then a lot of it is just using my sphere of influence and getting my name out there and advertising. And I do tons and tons of networking, volunteering, and marketing is the big thing. And people are just starting to know my name and seeing me everywhere they go. They can't get away from me. So especially in Airdrie, I've got my name on everything, right? So they're I know you, and people will walk up to me and they'll be like, I recognize your name. And I think that they say work until you don't have to introduce yourself. And I'm almost there, I think, in some instances. So yeah, I'm pretty much doing that same thing and doing the forward calls and like doing those kind of things and inviting people and doing the flow and all of those things. I'm not there. I don't have a perfect system by any means, but I do the stuff that works and has worked for me in the past and keep continuing to do that.
How about you? Same strategy you used before. What are you doing now that's different or the same?
So a lot of the stuff I'm doing is basically adding on to what I've been doing previous. Bless you.
Thank you.
So open houses and all that is still really important. I'm still keeping in touch with all the guys I've always kept in touch with. So what I'm doing now is just because like over the time I've been doing this, like a lot of my network is people that work in trades. So something I've been doing is introducing them to each other. If they need something done here, here's my guy, stuff like that.
So good. You become that connector. Yeah.
So I'm trying to get these people like what they need done. So I had someone contact me that was a client of mine. It's like, oh, do you know someone that does stucco? I'm like, you know what, I do. And they're sending it over to their friend.
It's fantastic.
So.
Well, and to kind of expand on that, in the ninja selling thing in the ninja sales training that we do every single year, the role of the connector is so valuable because you are providing so much help to other people that there is that feeling of reciprocity where you've just made somebody's life easier by connecting them to so and so. That there's that little thing where like, well, what can I do to help your business because you're doing things to help other tradespeople with their business. So that's really powerful. And then are you finding that a lot by doing that you're getting a lot of real estate referrals specifically from that group?
Yeah, so people are sending me like, oh, here's my friend, you should talk to them. They're thinking about something in the future, or like, you help me out, like they're thinking of doing renovations, maybe you know a few guys that can help them out. And it's kind of just actively trying to help them. And then over time, they kind of just start talking to you themselves.
Yeah.
They like you, they want to talk to you, and usually they'll say like, oh, here's another friend I know. So my goal has really been to build that list of contacts because my list of contacts is small, and I still think it's pretty small. And doing this is like people just introducing me to people because they want to introduce me. I'm not going out looking for people. It's like, here, meet my friend.
Yeah.
You're just providing enough value in terms of the information that you have that people think that you're a good guy to know.
I guess, yeah.
Sorry.
No,
please. I was just saying, Jennifer, I know you're a serial networker as well.
Yes, yeah.
In terms of meeting tons of people, what do you find is a strategy that's worked for those people in a professional capacity to trust you?
So what I learned when I was taking the mentorship course is there was a thing called your sphere, I think it was the word that Gary used, where you want to have people that are going to use you and know, like, and trust you, obviously, right? But so I was like, okay, I want to have a bunch of people that I know, like, that are, the lawyer, the candlestick maker, all of those kind of things. And so I decided to actually start my own networking group. So I've started my own networking group that is ran by me, and I'm actually just in the process of going nonprofit with it because it's growing so exponentially. So we've actually got a committee, and we've got members, and we've got like a treasurer, and we've got a president, and we've got a communications person, and a logo, and a website, and it's super fancy. And it's going really great, but it's exactly the same thing that he's saying, is that honest to goodness, if no one ever bought a house from me, which I have had people buy, but if they never did buy a house from me, but every single time they think, oh, I need a plumber or I need a painter, Jennifer's going to know somebody. And like, whether they call me for a shoe company to clean their shoes or fix their soles or whatever, I know somebody. And so as soon as they think real estate, they're going to think of me. And that's what I'm trying to build with the group. And like they say, it's exactly, how can I help you? Because look at what you've done for me.
It's
and
perfect.
And that's part of the reason why my business is 70%, 75% referral.
If you guys are at a networking event and you think the best strategy is to huck out business cards, it's like you can give somebody your business card, but make sure that you focus on how you can help them.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then people will go out of their way to help you.
When they say, like, the conjunction word for networking is work, and if you go to one networking thing and think you're going to get 5 deals from it, you're not.
Yeah.
You may have to. I had to do it for almost a year before I got 1 deal.
Wow.
So don't just give up. Keep going.
And something will happen.
And something will happen.
Do you take, and both of you do a lot of networking, and you really try and put yourselves out there. Obviously, you are starting from a totally different place. How are you, when you're going out and you're meeting these people and you're saying, your database is small, so obviously you're still in the process of building this and tracking this, and you are successful, right? Like, you're doing well. So
Thank you.
where did you're so most modest person you'll ever meet. So I'm going to say it for you. You're doing well. And then, so you went from here and now you're here. What, if you don't mind sharing, what's that number in your database now? And what is your goal in terms of how many people you're adding to it? Where do you want to see it get?
So I want it to get as big as possible. I don't really have a limit on it. So my goal for the end of this year was to be at about 200. And
wow.
So end of this year I want to be 200. When I started out it was 30.
Wow.
And currently it's just about around 100.
Yeah. Perfect.
That's fantastic for knowing absolutely no. And these are actual people that you would not just, writing down names of everyone but that's like an actual working database of people you legitimately want to do business with.
Yeah, so a lot of these people are just people, like some of them are people that I've met and they want to do something eventually.
Yeah.
Some of them are just like people, like I said, like my goal is always in networking is to kind of just make a friend. Like I'm going to help the guy out.
Totally.
I don't aim for the deal at the other end. And when I work with a client, I work with them hoping that they'll trust me enough to give me a referral. And when I meet these people, I'm just trying to be friendly, and then they just introduce me to other people, and I kind of have them in my contacts, and they're like, oh, well, one day, maybe.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of keep in touch with them. And I don't do anything like pushy, really. I just keep in touch with them like you do with people.
And that's something we both say is like we're both part of the same ninja group, and it's something that we've been talking about where both of us are not pushy salespeople at all. Like we want people to know it's like you and I were celiac, right? Like how do you know somebody's celiac? Don't worry, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with real estate, right? It's like I probably put it into the sentence when I'm talking to somebody 4 or 5 times, but I never ask for it. I'm never like, do you know anybody? Because I just, it's the same, you want them to know you're a realtor, but you don't want to be, for myself anyways, I definitely don't want to be a pushy, like the only reason I'm talking to you is to get a sale.
No.
And I think that you're sort of the same, like, I would never want my best friend to be like, oh, I forgot you're a realtor, but I would also never want them to think like, oh my goodness, Jennifer, her numbers come up on the line, I don't want to answer it kind of thing. I get that like heebies and So I think that's super important because there's so many people so many realtors that are like all sales all the time. And I think Brett Murrell has said, I put the real in realtor, and I've stole that from him because I'm a real human.
Yeah.
Yep.
Long before I'm a realtor, I'm a real human, and I care about that more than anything. If I would always want people to think of me and be like, oh, I want to answer the phone when she calls. I don't want it to just be sales all the time.
Let's change gears for a second here, and let's talk about challenges, because inevitably, I mean, we do these sessions and people put people up on a pedestal when you're on camera and stuff, but there's a vulnerable part here where it's like it's not all sunshine and lollipops,
No.
as you all know. So Jennifer, starting with you, what were some of the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome with them? Or pick like one or two that you said, and maybe you're still overcoming them, but it's like, tell us a little bit about the challenges and your approach to that.
I mean, definitely there was challenges. Obviously, I became a realtor in the worst recession in my lifetime, so that was a challenge in its own right. As we mentioned at the beginning, failure wasn't an option though, and so I was like, okay, this isn't working, and so I'll try this, or I'll try that, or I'll take another course. And I mean, there was constantly struggles. There was always something else that was coming. There was always a new thing that I didn't know, or a situation that would come up, but I was always very much willing to ask for help. And I always said to my clients, I'm like, I've got something amazing here. I've got Quick Connect. And I'm like, if I don't know the answer, I will never tell you that I do know the answer, and I will find out the answer. And I'm not too stubborn to say, oh yeah, because I want to make sure that I get you the right answer, right? There's my answer, and then there's the right answer. And so
there's also a lot in between with Quick Connect, because we sometimes disagree as managers even about what the right answer is.
Of course. But it was wonderful to have that available to me, and knowing that I never felt like I was alone. And so I found that with any challenge that I had, I had that backup. But I also was able to, but just in general with challenges, I mean, there's been tons, right? Like I say, and for the most part, though, I definitely just don't get overwhelmed. Like, I just kind of was like, okay, I've got to look at this as one, like, I kind of break it down into sections and see like what the end result is, and always like putting my clients first. Nice. And kind of doing it like that, and not trying to get too overwhelmed in like because you can really get brought down. Like,
oh, yeah.
you can, yeah. And I'm pretty feisty when it comes to my clients, and I know sometimes when the managers answer the phone, they're like, "Oh, Jennifer, what now?" But it's because I care so much.
Yeah.
And it is. So that's kind of my answer, I guess. Lots of challenges. It's constant.
Yeah. I mean, memorable challenges or challenges you faced, and your approach to overcoming them.
So challenges, like right off the bat, like you were saying, like I decided to go into real estate when the market was going down.
That's right.
So that, the lack of contacts and stuff, so it was just struggling through challenges. And what got me through it was just remembering, like, everyone started from nothing in this business, right? And I come from, like, I'm first generation born in this country, so my family came here with nothing.
Right.
And everything they have, they built up, and I've seen it been built. So I wasn't so much afraid, because I've had examples in my life. I'm like, this is possible.
Yeah.
And then when you have those days where, like, oh, it's been like months and I haven't gotten a deal, I've been keeping up with people. The real thing that kept me going was remembering that so long as I'm working at it, I'm putting in the time, I'm contacting people, taking classes, I can't say I'm doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
The moment I'm doing nothing, I'm going to get nothing.
That's right.
So long as I'm trying, I'm like, eventually.
Your paycheck will represent how much work you did.
I'll tell you something though, and it's
The actions were a big deal.
Yeah.
when you start off, it's tough to trust yourself. And it's tough to, like, you take courses, you do different things, and you hear about different realtors, different things, but it's tough to trust the process. We tell people to trust the process, but they're like, but how do I know that this is even gonna work ever? And and all of a sudden, it's like this deal comes in, and you're like, oh, okay. And then there's a point in your career where you sort of settle in and say, okay, now I can actually trust that I know that this activity, although it might take 45 to 90 days, whatever it is, 60 to 90 days, to drum up, it will generate business, and so that takes some time, because at the start you're like, I don't know, maybe maybe this market's different, maybe this is different now, maybe I should be all in the online, maybe I'm missing out on online, or maybe I'm missing out on this, and you have that moment where you can just relax and say, there's no secrets out there, it's just you just got to keep doing the activity and trusting the process.
Kind of a tough question, and something that I've always wondered about is, obviously, like, you know, you were laid off and you decided to quit your job, but at one point you're deciding that I'm going to start a career that there is no income in right now.
Yeah, that leap, that.
Which is like, that is really, in terms of just general confidence in yourself and your ability to start with, that's got to be something that that all realtors must have, at least in the beginning, because what a terrifying thing to do, and especially in an economy like that, and you have to wait to get your sales. I mean, starting with you, because you know, we're laid off, so from a financial position of saying, I need to set myself up to know that this might be tough for a little bit of while, but at the same time, you're starting a brand new business, and most people who start brand new business, like new businesses, require money and time and back saving. So you were successful in starting to build without, I know, putting out a ton of money in advertising and all of that jazz. What did you find was the best use of the money you did have to start your business? Where did you put that?
So for me, it was basically like the money was going into printing cards, printing the material I need.
Yeah.
Gas, really, because I wanted to go out there and meet people.
Yeah.
That's a great, honest answer.
Starbucks coffees.
Lots of coffees. And actually, just because you brought up challenges, one of my first challenges was with that first client I had, that builder. There's 2 partners in that business, and one of them, without telling me, went to India. So long distance calls were also part of where I put my money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Skype, get really good at Skype right away.
Yeah.
No kidding. And Jennifer, for you, if you were to say, you know, kind of advice for somebody who just started out, what are you looking at in terms of how to prepare financially for what your first, call it 6 to 8 months, realistically is going to look for? How do you prepare for that? What should you realistically expect?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that everybody realizes how expensive it is. It truly is expensive. Even if you don't do anything, I think even if all you did was pay for your website and your fees to the brokerage and the fees to Krebs and everything, I think it's $2,300 a month that I'm spending, it feels like. I think that includes my car, but anyways, and it is, though. It's so but it is. It's so expensive, and
but a car is a non-negotiable. Just like business cards could almost be a negotiable.
Yes,
but you're right. A car isn't. So I like how you include that.
But you do. It is. It's in there, right? And if I never sold anything, it's about $2,300 a month. If I didn't, and what I find is that like luckily I had my husband to back me up, and he was there, but I think that it probably, I was a year in, and if I had had to subsidize myself, it would have been impossible.
Right.
So I mean, I admire people that do it on their own, or that they're supporting their families and that on it. But I mean, the biggest thing I think, though, is that there is so much that you can do for free. That is like the flow and the stuff with, I am not being paid by CIR to have this interview. I keep saying like pro CIR, but it is, though, it's true. I mean, there's an open house basically costs nothing.
Yeah.
The flow stuff basically costs nothing. You can do tons of stuff on your own Facebook, and you can do it without spending a ton of money.
Totally.
And I did it, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about how I did it. But you don't have to spend a ton of money to get it started.
Period. Good.
Take us to motivation. What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going? Aman?
For me, it was basically, like I was saying, my family, like for generations, like they were hardworking farmers in India, and then they came here and they'd start from nothing.
Wow.
Watching that, seeing not just my parents, but like other relatives do the same and become quite successful at it. Those examples were always motivational. Talking with other realtors actually is a really good one too, because you'll hear their stories, and they all have one thing in common, which is like, I started with nothing, and then I worked my way up slowly.
Totally.
And there's a few stories in there. It's like, I started with nothing and I skyrocketed. But what I find is those people that put in the time will eventually reach that same place. Like they will have those contacts, they will be doing those deals. So I was always motivated by seeing other people's success.
That's great. How about yourself?
For me, it was probably a little bit more selfish than that. It was more, I didn't want, like I said at the beginning, kind of failure wasn't really an option.
It's like a pride thing.
It's a pride thing for sure. And I always sort of felt that I wasn't meant to build someone else's dream, and so I wanted to represent how, what is that saying? I wanted my paycheck to represent my productivity, and so it was like, it's a direct representation. The amount of money that I make shows
Yes.
how hard I worked.
Yes.
And so I was like, no matter how hard I worked in any other job that I had, it was $17 an hour. It didn't matter how hard I worked,
Right.
just enough to not get fired, right?
Totally.
And so now I can see that if I do the work, that's the motivation. The motivation is, and also I'm very much into charity, and my poor husband, he was like, you make $1 and then you give away 50 of it, 50 cents of it, right? And so that's my motivation, is like the puppies and the kids, and like I want to give it all away. So the more money I make, the more money I can give away.
You're very similar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, speaking about people who are.
We had it. He comes from like the Salvation Army of packing up toys and hears me to call off the Ronald McDonald House and shows up right afterwards. What are you doing here? You were just at that. And he's
Yeah.
like, it's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I come from a family that's really heavy on giving. One of the main goals for me is just being able to give not just back to charity, but to my family as well. Like, I want to be able to pay to take my mom on vacation. I want to buy my dad a nice car one day.
Wow.
I have nieces and nephews that I just want to spoil the hell out of. So,
You two are awesome. I mean, in terms of your giving back to the world, and not just philanthropy, but also just in terms of giving back to the community and the people that are part of your network.
We're running a little bit out of time, so we might not get to all of these, but I'm still going to add another question because I'm just curious. Can you, to be successful, which you've both been, you obviously have some sort of a daily routine, and both of you keep mentioning taking the actions. We've mentioned things, I'll do this now and then, but what does your day look like? Like a successful, productive day doing real estate activities where you go to bed in the day, being like, and it doesn't mean you were working with buyers and sellers, but you wake up and the actions you take for you to know you're on track, what are those?
so for me, I will say it starts like, I'm not a morning person. Like, I hate mornings. I want to stay in bed the whole time.
Yeah.
Me too.
So when I wake up, the first thing is I do the typical routine everyone does in the morning. And the two things that really help me get going are, I have a list of, like the hot and warm lists, like clients I need to talk to and stuff, what's going on, like who's asked me for what, like what information do I need to get, and then it kind of gets the gears rolling. It's like, okay, this is what I need to think about right now.
And this is written out on a piece of paper that you physically
Whiteboard. I have a
reference.
whiteboard.
You have a whiteboard,
Yeah,
okay.
I write everything down on it
Every day.
every day.
Okay.
I update it as it needs to be, and then I have another whiteboard, which is where my warm and cold and all that lists are, like for clients and stuff like that. So that gets my gear going, and then I have to go on a run on the treadmill because that really gets me moving,
Nice.
right? And then breakfast, and then from there it's just like start working on that list. And I usually prioritize, it's like what needs to be done first, and I have it. So it's really simple to go through. I literally just go check this off, done. Check this off, done. Work my way through it.
And those are phone calls and emails,
Yeah.
typically?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's physically getting in touch with people on these lists. That's how you start your day. So
Yeah.
it's prospecting.
Yeah, or it's gathering information. Like, for example, I have clients that are builders because I worked as a project manager in the construction industry. I will review plans and stuff and give them suggestions, remind them, it's like, oh, this office room is kind of small. If you remember last time we did this, like your planner measures like this, but you have to also remember there's drywall coming in there as well. And then you're going to lose like half an inch here and there.
So there's where you can add value.
Yeah.
That's great. Jen?
And for myself, I am not as organized as that, but I definitely do most of my work, like if I'm going to send updates or contact my clients, that's kind of in the first 2 hours of the day. And then I try to schedule some sort of education. Like I kind of have like 2 days of education in there usually in the week. Like I build my schedule on 168 hours, not on per day, like 8 hours a day. Like I schedule, I'm very, very scheduled. My calendar would make most people cry, but it's very scheduled down to the minute with room in there for fun and unexpected things. But I definitely have it all split up into like, okay, this is what I'm going to do in the morning. Usually it's the contacting clients, and then the afternoon is usually like, that's when I'll book inspections or anything like that, and then making sure that everything is in advance. Like if I'm going to send out cards or anything like that, I make sure that that gets taken care of in that 2 hours in the morning. But yeah, I don't have any like fancy, I don't go on the treadmill like religiously or anything like that. But I am pretty like this is what I do in the
Right.
mornings, this is what I do in the afternoons, and then fit everything in the middle. And I try not to schedule more than like 2 things in a day. Like, you know, if I was going to take a class in the morning and then an inspection in the afternoon, I don't put any more because it gets to be too much.
Yeah,
Fair.
that's a great call.
The one thing I would say, like, always have on the top of your list is that really gets me going is the affirmations, or just write down your goal. Just the first thing, write down, remind yourself what the goal is.
Yeah.
So great.
And that's a daily thing for you.
Yeah, top on the list for me is affirmations, but I know people that just have their goals written down. They might have it up on a board, vision boards. So like it's something that they see right away. I know people that put it on like as soon as they go to the mirror, it's right in the corner, like a small vision board. But just remembering that goal first thing in the morning really helps you get going.
There's that fog. There's so many distractions in the world. And typically it's other people's expectations and obligations that they want you to help them fulfill. So if you can have your goal first and foremost, it helps you cut through that noise.
Yeah.
Tell us, let's switch to advice. New realtor getting in, you're now mentoring somebody. What are you going to tell them about getting into the business? And they're already in, so you can't tell them not to.
Right.
So they're already in, but what advice do you give Jennifer?
So advice I would give is get a mentor. It's the first thing that you do. Get a mentor. Get somebody that you can really trust that knows the business, and just keep at it. And also like trust in yourself. Trust in the skills that you're learning through what you learned in the course, and also through what you've learned taking the courses with CIR, and knowing that when you get in front of a client, they're going to understand. Like they're not, I noticed a lot of people in my first year that would get all this information and they were like just continuously practicing, and then they're like, oh, I could never actually talk to a client. And so just do it.
Yeah.
And role playing is really great and all of that, but you can only do that so many times until you actually need to sit in front of a human. And so do it. Just go and what's the worst that's going to happen? They might say no. But if they say no, at least you had the opportunity, because there's also the 50% chance that they won't say no. Yeah. And so I would say, yeah, just get out there. Like get out of your house, get out of your comfort zone, and go and actually talk to people. And spend as much time in the office as you can and with other people. I mean, it's a very lonely business, and I notice that you see a lot of the same people at the events all of the time, and those are the people that are successful because they're doing the work and they're getting out there and they're seeing people. And even if it's not comfortable, just do it. Go and talk to people, and there's always going to be people that are willing to help you. You just have to ask.
Great advice.
Aman, advice?
For me, it's similar. Like you have to be doing something.
Yeah.
And at first you're not going to know what you're doing. So take a course, get a mentor, read some books. And there's tons of courses, and like I know everyone keeps pushing CIR, but not necessarily have to be at CIR. Crab has some pretty good courses too.
It's better if you are at CIR.
Sure.
Just kidding. Go ahead.
There's a ton of books to be reading. Like you can find lists online. People make these lists of like must-read books. If you take the Ninja Selling Program, you get like pages and pages of books to be reading.
Lifetime
right?
of reading.
Yeah, and that continuous education and practice. So you can learn as much as you want. You can have lists of notes, but until you're applying it, right, you're not going to really know what you're doing. You're just going to know the technicals of it.
And some people are too scared. They're like, I can't go, not until I finish up this. It's like, no, you got to get out there.
Yeah, for me, it was difficult because naturally, like I'd say I'm pretty introverted. Like I'm that like nerdy introvert that you think, like the atypical like nerdy introvert. So if you want to talk about video games, comics, sci-fi, books, novels, whatever, right? You need to build a computer. I'm your guy.
Yeah.
You want to start I couldn't start conversations. Networking and stuff was not in my nature. But again, that came through practice. So I know a lot of people starting out will be like, I don't want to make phone calls. It's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
But you keep doing it, and eventually it's like, I'm used to this now. Like
Second nature, yeah.
Yeah, it becomes something you're just doing daily, and you get used to it. It ends up going from faking it, like you're trying to do it, and eventually it's just
making
true.
it.
Yeah. So it becomes part
true.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know that when I was emailing, when I was emailing you guys to do this, I was thinking, and I said this, and Lindsay's like, we should get. We were obviously we thought about both of you. That was it. And as soon as we said your name, I was like, I don't know if he's gonna do it. And you said he's so good. If he's gonna say no, we're gonna get someone to talk. We're gonna get somebody to talk you into it. But the whole faking it until you're making it, right? Like this is just it. You know, you don't love talking about yourself, all this jazz, and you're here and you're doing it, and it's huge. But part of it is just you gotta practice and you gotta show up, and that's awesome. So thank you so much. You're a great example because not everybody is extremely extroverted, right? And there's a lot of realtors that are watching, and you know, I've sat in different mentorship and we've specifically had conversations about, I'm introverted, can I be good at real estate with that type of personality? And there's just different ways to be successful and different ways to add value and different ways to make relationships that are a bit more one-on-one than group situations. And that's very much been your route, right? Like where you've gone and done the whole, as many people as possible in a room as for your networking group, which is amazing. You take the one-on-one route, which is a little bit quieter but also extremely personal. And that's great too. So you don't have to be, moral of that story is you don't have to be extroverted. Yeah, which I love.
I want to thank both of you for taking your time to come on the show and help give so much value, just like you guys do in all your lives as well. So Jennifer, Aman, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about your journey in real estate.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you to everybody who tuned in today. You can find all of our content on agentpursuit.com. We also have a podcast that you can download on Apple that has the audio files of all of these, which is pretty cool. Didn't tell you were going to be in a podcast, but you are.
There you go.
So also we're on all the social media channels if you want to see little tidbits of our interviews and some different advice. And for anybody who is new in the business and is watching this, just know, as to your points, that the actions are important, believe in yourself, and great things will happen. That sounded like a bit of a corny way to end it, but watching your stories and watching you guys join the business and see that, like, it's hard to know in the moment, but it's definitely coming. So hopefully this was inspiring for you.
And a final big shout out to Ryan McKay, McKay Law, for giving us some cool space to record in and letting us do that. So that's it. All the best, you guys, and we'll see you next week.